Okay, can everybody hear me on line? We'll get a thumbs up. Okay, I'm getting nods. Great. All right, well, welcome everybody. Sorry for starting a little bit late, but thank you everybody for joining us. This is our Q2 UNECA meeting. We're going to spend most of the time, I think, going over the strategic plan, which everybody should have received a copy of in advance. Before we get started with the agenda, though, I did want to kick off with a safety message, and then we'll just do roll call. And Brandy, I'm going to need a refresher on folks joining virtually, how we make sure we enroll them and go through all the virtual rules as well. But we do have a quorum here in the room, so I think we should be good. So I don't know about all of you, but at least up in the Northern Virginia area, this past few days has been kind of an extreme rain volumes. And so it got me thinking a little bit about kind of wet weather safety and a couple of key things. One is, even driving down here today, there was quite a bit of water still on 95. I noticed a few people maybe not driving as safely through some of the puddles. So as we've been getting a lot of rain, it's important to remember that just because it looks like a puddle doesn't mean it can't be deeper and actually impact your driving. So please be aware of that. But then the other thing is we've gotten both Friday night and then last night, at least in Northern Virginia, there were some pretty extreme amounts of rain. I know we had some flash flooding warnings and other things, and in some specific areas, I noticed a lot of debris that was washed onto roads, and it got me thinking about when that is scheduled to happen, at least around your house or other things, making sure your drains are staying clear so things can actually drain and go to the places they're supposed to when there's extreme weather. I know a lot of places that we frequent over the weekends were actually flooded and they were closed because they had to go in and remove a lot of debris and wash. So just be extra aware. Unfortunately, it's been a very wet season so far, at least start to what's supposed to be summer. And so be aware of those things when there is these extreme amounts of rain that we're having. So any questions on the safety message or anything to add? Okay, so Brandy, if we can go ahead and do the roll call so that we can verify that we have our quorum so we can vote on things as needed today.
I did not have enough time to print
That's okay.
everything out with the state of our office right now.
Yeah, when she's not sharing.
Yeah.
We moved to a transition office and none of us have functioning printers right now, so.
No, I appreciate that, and we'll definitely bear with that here, so thank you.
They have been more than going around the office.
I'm so sorry.
Okay.
I'm going through my cheat sheet here since I was unable to print it. Jeff Fox.
Here.
Ken Ball. Dr. Lowe. John Capps,
Here.
Eric Carr.
Yep.
Director Davis, are you online? Julian Skyper is in this place. I thought I saw him.
Yeah.
Ronnie Smith,
Here.
Tom DePonte,
Here.
Rich Diddams, Jean Freshner,
Here.
Andrew Hutton, Scott Koppel,
Here.
Mary Nimmer,
Here.
Randy Heplin,
Here.
thank you. Tim Stoller,
Here.
thank you. Carrie Tepper,
Here.
Brian Bella,
Here.
April Wade.
Here.
I think that's it.
Okay, great. So we do have a quorum, and just kick things off. I wanted to do the minutes from the last meeting first, kind of get that out of the way. If anybody has any changes, you should have the minutes in front of you from our last meeting. Are there any changes or anything that was missed? And if not, can I get a motion to approve the minutes? Scott? And Calvin, Dr. Lowe? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Great. So do we have, Glenn, are you on, or Julian, are you going to give the update for?
Yeah.
I'm on with Julian's, they're in person.
Great, thanks, Glenn. Do you want to pass this over to Julian? So she-
Yes, we're, is it on? Not a huge update. In fact, some of the items that I was gonna mention are mentioned in the plan, and that is the recently awarded BPIP grants to Ben Hub for 1.2 million for research reactor and the Virginia Center for Nuclear Materials and Reliability, which we are delighted. And Jeff Witt is going to oversee that. And so the pressure is on Jeff, but we're very excited to get that going. And I also, I believe you all are aware at the last meeting, I believe Brandy said that it was mentioned that the SMR control room simulator at George Mason that we've funded through the Clean Energy Innovation Bank at the Department of Energy has been installed and it's functioning and it's up and going, ready for programming. And that was exciting. We got to visit that a few weeks ago. So, and that's it.
Great. Yeah. No, it's fine. Yeah.
I gotta go.
You get to go, April.
All right. Randy, if you do have the slides, I sent you.
I do.
And we don't have to go over the strategic plan stuff yet. We're gonna do that.
Okay. Okay, all right, so we're gonna hold on the strategic plan then. So we are, a couple things that we've been doing lately is the nuclear 101s I told you about last time. We held one in Lynchburg and in Hampton Road. We're gonna have another one in Wise in August. Then we are also gonna be doing a virtual nuclear 101. We have partnered up with the Nuclear Innovation Alliance and also the Clean Air to do those events. We're bringing other speakers in from other NGOs and then a few speakers from the Virginia industry as well. But we'll have the virtual one starting in late August. We'll have one a month until December, just trying to reach as many people. I've been able to be invited to some groups, military groups in Northern Virginia, some economic development groups. So we've been really getting the word out there and more people are asking us to come in and talk to them and update on what's going on in the industry. The strategic plan has been a big part of the work the last few months, so I'll go over that here shortly. The other thing is that we're working on getting our workforce plan together. We will be having a meeting this summer. We're finding some new dates with some of the key players, but we will be having that this summer to go through that and have a workforce plan to provide you all hopefully at our next meeting with all. And so those are the big things I have going on. I'm working with Jeff a lot. I'm glad to have it up and running.
Next question.
Yeah.
So on the one-on-ones, I'm just curious, it sounds great, but is there a certain target audience or certain outcome you're hoping for? Is it just more awareness, which that's an okay answer too? I'm curious.
I know for, elected officials, not only state elected officials, but community elected officials, economic development, and the business community and educators as well. We've come across it. Everybody's like, we hear a lot about what's going on. There's stuff moving about nuclear in the state, but what is actually going on and why? So I took it as an MIT course a couple of summers ago, which is 2.5 days, kind of condensed that. One of our partners, some of you may know, is Patrick White. He actually used to run MIT there when he was a grad student, that program. So he just came up with this condensed version of, we talk about why do we need nuclear? What is nuclear? What is the pathway for a community to go from, siting all the way to deployment? We talk about what's going on here in Virginia. We talk about the good, bad, and the ugly. We don't hide from that either. And we're also talking about what communities can do to help support. So it's a long day, but it is almost a full day to do it. But we've had some really good response from the community too.
Thanks.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone has participated in those meetings. I know Jeff has, and Eric, we've had debating representatives and others. They're actually really engaging. I think the legislators and the local leaders that have attended, I think, have gotten a lot out of them. So I think they've been really valuable.
And staff.
Yes, and staff. Sorry.
And staff.
Hold on now. All right. Any other questions for April? We'll have a lot more discussion as we get into the strategic plan portion. We'll give her the mic back. But any other questions?
Just when you mentioned the stakeholders on the workforce meeting that you're going to have in the summer, who all does that entail?
Our consortium of that workforce group is now, I think, almost 60 members. We have community colleges, industry, economic development. We have labor representative. We have data centers now representative. It's a big group that are very interested in what's going on and want to be part of this conversation.
And are some of the state workforce folks there as well?
Mhm.
Open
Yeah.
umbrella? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Virginia Energy definitely has been invited. There's also Kathy Byron's been to the
Okay,
meetings.
yes.
Yeah, she's been there.
Okay, good.
EDP's been at the meetings. The group gets bigger. It's great conversation, a lot of lessons learned. The first meeting was really for the industry to tell the community colleges what's going on. There was a good conversation there, right, Dr. Katz? We had a good conversation. And then, the next meeting, we toured Framatome, which was a great experience for them to see. I'd like them to tour BWXT at some point, and I've already started talking to Josh about that. And then we also had a meeting where we were just learning for what the community colleges have too. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, but we want to make sure that we're using all the tools that we currently have, and if we need new tools to get the workforce we need.
One thing to think about, I was going to talk about this more in the nuclear updates, is one of the executive orders that came out from the White House last month now was on some of the workforce. Wasn't just on workforce, but there were some workforce aspects, especially Department of Education, Department of Labor, trying to support the necessary needs in the nuclear workforce. I know at the federal level at NEI and some others, Framatom's starting to look at how can there be some education at the Department of Labor and Department of Education on how that can be helpful. And I think this effort would be something good to tie in there because there's a lot of examples that are happening at the local, state, and local level. I think they could use the benefit of understanding those things. So.
Yeah, I should mention, more,
Excuse me a second. I'm just hearing from somebody online. They said they can't hear us very well.
I will-
Let me project a little more.
I will try my best. So one of the other things is that I was at a meeting, an ANS meeting in February, and a group of us got together with NEI, talk about how each of the states really need to do a better job to learn from each other. So NEI took that call to action, and they have set up a group that would represent for most of the states to come in and talk about. We're going to have a meeting to talk about what we're doing, what we can do better, what support's needed. And I'm part of the kind of the planning committee on that. So that's going on as well. So there's a lot of pieces going on with workforce right now that I think are really good and we're definitely moving forward.
Any other questions for April? Okay, Jeff, VinHub updates.
All right, thank you for letting me be here again. I think in the last meeting, I was just getting my feet underneath me, and I gave you my my 90-day plan, and I'm glad to say I've finished 100 days, so which is good. So let me tell you about the topics. People was the first thing that I talked to you about. We have continued to work on developing our board leadership. We have added David Long from Huntington Ingalls, so we have that representation on the board. We're adding BEDP, so we have the economic development voice on the board. We're adding Virginia Community College rep, and we're currently vetting that. So thank you, Dr. Capson. We're continuing those conversations, but I think I gave you an update on that. And we'll also be adding GWXT here later this year. We're working really hard to make sure that we have a very diverse board representation of all the stakeholders, since what we're doing is helping with a lot of the investment that's going on. So that'll give you an update on that leadership. Also looking at launching a technical advisory committee. That is going to come later once I get these anchor projects going a little better. And that's designed to have disinterested individuals with technical expertise to be able to come in and be a sounding board as we take a deeper look at R&D. And we actually have Idaho National Labs has agreed to put a disinterested individual on there that will bring that balance into that working group as well. So what I'm trying to do is build some board and technical leadership that we can really lean into as we grow the work with the hub. Under projects, Julianne has mentioned it. We're very grateful that Virginia Energy saw the value in those anchor projects that I talked to you about the last time. The first one being phase one, laying the groundwork for Virginia Research and Education Facility, research reactor and education facility. We have named that a facility because we don't want to put ourselves in a box with a predetermined outcome of a specific reactor type. And that has been very helpful as we have had conversations with some of our Virginia stakeholders. They're beginning to tell us what their needs are. So we're going to bring those to the table as part of that. So that'll be phase one. The intended outcome of that is to create a roadmap, a budget, a plan that would then take us to the next phase. Basically have a research reactor facility here in the state of Virginia. I've had a lot of questions about where it's going to go. That's one of the things that we will make a recommendation out of that. It's not a predetermined decision that we know what the right answer is right now. So we'll go through that. The second one is the Virginia Center for Nuclear Materials Reliability. And I think I mentioned that to you the last time. As we look at the advanced reactors and some of the materials, we have an over 50-year legacy of materials reliability in the light water reactor industry. We don't have the same legacy. And so what we're doing is we have a tremendous amount of talent here in the Commonwealth across our universities. This project's to pull them together and help us get organized and be able to lead in a way that we can have Virginia resources working on Virginia material needs for those advanced reactors as we move towards introducing them in the future. The other thing that we've worked on is, I mentioned to you workforce. It's a big topic. And I don't know if in the last board meeting I talked to you about my predictive model concerns that we have on that. We've just gotten the initial, what I call the baseline data back. I have that under review right now. And then I'm actually beginning to meet with other companies to try to create, is there an AI model that we can look at in the future that allows us to be able to put assumptions in and give you much higher degrees of granularity than you have now. So we've at least started to work on that and have the initial report, and hopefully we'll be making some next steps in that here later this year. That was the projects. I will skip processes because, man, I'm learning a lot of processes that I'm going through this. The other was publicity and bringing visibility. So we're grateful for the announcements from the governor's office of the awards. We'll have, I've been supporting, as April said, several events, Adams for Appalachia, Nuclear 101. And I'm gonna give you a commentary on that as somebody that's coming into this from a more technical background. I see the value of being able to bring people in a forum where they can ask the questions that might be, I don't want to say this the wrong way, the stupid questions, because what we have is a lot of people are trying to become informed so they can make informed decisions. And the Nuclear 101 forum creates a place for them to be able to do that, and a very healthy conversation. So much so that we're bringing one to Southwest Virginia as well, because we met with stakeholders there. We realized, wow, this would be a value to be able to come in and be able to do that. So I've supported those, and it's been quite a great learning experience. There will be something coming out with Cardinal News that'll be part of publicity, so we'll see what spin they put on what we've done here, which will be good. So, and y'all weigh in on anything public and make it positive, okay? And then the other thing I'll tell you on publicity, we're planning for a fall summit as part of the Research Reactor Education Facility, where we're going to actually use it for a twofold purpose. First of all, bring attention to Virginia and Virginia's leadership. But secondly, use it as a forum to be able to gather additional data so that we can actually make a much informed decision on the direction we're going to go with the Research Reactor Facility. So that's kind of a public thing that you'll see coming later in the fall. So that's my update. I'm open for questions.
I have a question. I just want to clarify something because everybody in the room knows this, that we did get budget money allocated in the budget for MidHub. That 1.2 is part of that money. It is not new money. It's that money. So I just want to make sure that's clear.
You mentioned NEI earlier. Who in this forum has access to NEI data? Can you get them? You said or were you just referencing that others are working with them?
The workforce data?
Yeah.
I can get access to it. But yeah, I can get access. I'm working with Lori Brady, but Jeff Lori's talked to Jeff as well, at NEI. So Jeff and I are just this old married couple at this point.
I know NEI is in the middle. They're in the middle of the next workforce survey. I just want to make sure we have access to that.
Yes, sir. Yes.
I'm sorry, Eric, you said that Dominion's in the middle of the workforce study?
NEI is.
Anyway.
Jeff, you mentioned the fall summit. Will you have like technology providers participating in that?
Yeah. So the question is, in the summer, we have technology advisor companies. We will. The plan is to have some other research reactor facility representatives to be able to come so we can glean from the lessons learned, then have our government representatives, then have the teams who are actually leading these for the 4 universities. And then we need the technology providers present as well, because we're going to then create that in the afternoon session to then create somewhat of a breakout workshop so we can actually synthesize that back for strategic inputs. The second thing that I didn't mention, independent of that, we're going to create a survey that we can go back to Virginia industry and Virginia stakeholders to get their input, because we've made it very clear. It's a Virginia research reactor and education facility with the primary needs of supporting Virginia resources, and then those industries that are coming and locating in Virginia, and then the region, and then nationally. We've kind of constrained that in all of our conversations with these teams, is that we want to make sure that we keep our focus on our product.
Yeah, follow up. You kind of started to answer a question I was thinking of,
Okay.
but for like the technologists, are you focusing again, the folks in the room, or I'll call the Virginia advanced reactor developers for,
Yep.
that have some sort of footprint and.
Yeah, so at one of the Adams for Appalachia event, we actually had a breakout with a small breakout with, we're technical leaders at Video XT as well as Framatome, and they gave us some very specific input of things that they needed. And so we're bringing them to the table for that part of that conversation. That's why I'm waiting for the team to give me the survey input, so that we're going to bring the industry in to be able to do that. But we would rather you're spending your money investing in Virginia resources than doing it someplace else.
And add on to that though, we are having an in-person board meeting and Jeff is going to come to that to talk to all of our members to have this conversation as well.
Yeah, I'll come to the VNEC meeting and actually make the same presentation and solicit that input as well.
Hey, Tom?
Yep.
Tom? Hey, I just wanted to clarify something really quick, and sorry for being remote, but just with regards to the other VPIP funds, and this is something that, well, April and I may agree personally on. The OEG looked at this differently and we got a ruling. So the VPIP funds, there was $4 million put out there to be competitive grants and to set up VinHub. It did not say how much had to go to VinHub or when it had to go to VinHub. And in clarification, and this is ironic, your VinHub is not the VinHub according to the OAG. So just for clarifications, there will be no money being cut to VinHub, which is why we had to do a competitive process, which when we gave out the 2 grants to VinHub for the contracts or the agreements you see today it was a competitive process with other applicants, and there were other awardees there too. And then we will have some future ones going forward for some additional monies, which probably not ready to get involved in that at this point. But that's how the money's going to go out. All the money's going to be competitively put out there because we cannot give any more funds directly to VinHub.
Yep, that makes sense. That makes sense. Thanks, Glenn.
No problem.
That's what it's saying. I have to work for it.
Jeff should always have to work for his money. No, but that's a good clarification, Glenn, and it's a smart way to do it, especially hopefully it'll allow some flexibility for other, like you said, competitions in the future, that's great. Other questions for Jeff or April on VNEC or VinHub updates? Okay, great. So I did want to leave us plenty of time to go over the strategic plan, and I'm gonna turn it back over to April to kind of walk through some of the background, and then we can. I think some input has been provided already, some feedback, but that's our hope here today is we can kind of walk through what's in the strategic plan, give feedback here in real time to April, and then we will talk about kind of what the next steps are from here to get this what we will call to the kind of final form. But just as a way of background, and April will go through some of this as well. This is an update to the 4-year plan that I think provided a tremendous resource for kind of getting us to where we are in terms of Virginia's continued leadership in nuclear energy. I think a lot of the progress that we've made, a lot of it can be pointed to things that were in the first iteration of the strategic plan. So as you'll remember, back in October, April convened another summit with stakeholders, not just from the authority and the VNEC board, but kind of from across the nuclear landscape in the Commonwealth to kick off kind of this update. So I want to thank April and her team, but her team is mostly April and Jeff and others, but really I want to thank April for her leadership in pulling this together. I think this is a really strong document. There's still some tweaks and things to be made, but we're in a really good place. So I will turn over to April. She'll kind of walk us through. I think you had a few slides correct on backgrounds and things, but we'll walk through this and then discuss.
And real quick, because I just got an email about this, I mentioned in my update. We do have 2 new board members for VNAC, Kairos Power joined VNAC, and Acon Group, they're a construction group. They just joined as well. I just want to let you all know that. So when we were looking at the strategic plan, we wanted to look at, business development. How can we help with that? And Brady, can you go to the next slide? Because it's just legislative. How can we take the plan that we developed and refine it? What is, looking at our competitive advantage? Again, Virginia, there's no other state that has what we have, and we really need to look at that, use that to launch from. And then what pathways that we need to develop for us to excel and get into towards deployment. So those were our objectives. You can go to the next slide.
It's a PDF, so I got.
So we focus on policy development, industry growth, workforce development, and research support. On research support, just as everybody knows, VinHub is a 501c3. They cannot lobby, but VNet can, and we will always be that arm for VinHub to help support them in their efforts of any support they needed from the state. Workforce development, we've talked about some of those things, but what else do we need to do? And the strategic plan looks at that. How can we grow as an industry? And what policies do we need here in Virginia to help us grow? Those were the things that we were looking at. Those are the things that we discussed when we met last fall. And so we took all the information and feedback we received in a survey that we sent out to the group and the conversation we had. And this is the plan that you all were sent last week. This is what we came up with. So I'm interested in any feedback. I will tell you there's a couple of companies, Pioneer Ingalls being one of them, which is a big input in my mind. I'm still waiting to get their input. There's a couple of people on the VNet board, companies that need to get back to me, but I think we're close. So what will happen is I will take your feedback and edits and put those into the strategic plan. I will wait for the couple more that I'm waiting on my side from my board. I'll add those in, and then I will submit them to Tom for one last review. And then we'll send it to Brandy and let her work with the state agencies to get their feedback as well. And then when it's done, we'll hand it out and start emailing it out to legislators as well. And we'll probably add that to our Nuclear 101, talk about what's in the plan. So any feedback? I know Scott gave me some.
So that's a question. So I noticed what was printed here and handed out.
I did not add.
That's fair. No, that was.
No, you didn't jump the line. You just got in early. So, but again, if you don't have, go ahead. If you don't have any feedback right now, you haven't had a chance. I mean, I can get it by Friday would be ultimately great.
And I think one just contextual thing, I think we talked about this at our previous meeting, but as you look at the plan that April and the team have put together, I think you'll see the kind of environmental shift that's happened between the previous strategic plan and where we are now, right? And I think that was one of the main kind of lenses that this was the input and the plan was viewed through as it goes into an update, right? In 2020, even 2019, the electricity generation, growth, demand, all those things looked quite a bit different than they do now. And so you may be asking there's a lot of kind of contextual information at the start of this plan, but I think it's important to have that because I think we did not fully have a view of what the electricity landscape would look like when we did the first 4-year plan, right? It was viewed through how do you start kind of building some momentum well, the momentum's there, I think, as Eric can probably testify to. And so now this is really how do you respond to this this urgent near-term and long-term, kind of need, and how does Virginia respond to that? So, but please, if you have, I think it's worth us discussing. If you've got comments, Scott, maybe you can kind of mention a few of the things. I know yours were a little bit more on the specific substance, but other areas folks had looked at this and had comments on.
Yeah, I mean, my comments were more, I guess, contextual or factual around shipbuilding and some of the things we're involved in, just simply the understanding the industry and what we do, what's in the state or what's not in the state. So some of that's wordsmithing,
Yeah.
so we're factually correct.
And the reason I asked Scott to kind of mention that is that's probably the other, from your individual organization standpoint, please look at this and just from a view of, is that how we view the world as well? Right. And if there are specific things that maybe, because again, things are changing, things have changed in the first, 5.5 months of this year. Even since the first drafts of the strategic plan started coming together. So it's worth looking at it from that lens as well.
I was going to say, maybe a simple example is we in Virginia can take credit for all the nuclear powered aircraft carriers. We can't take credit for all the submarine production. That's a 50-50, not quite 50-50, but there's a split that goes on. But we also can take credit for the reactors and fuel, for example, for all those platforms. So again, part of it's how we say things, but let's be factually correct. So I think I'll just emphasize Tom's point. We all kind of know our niches in this industry better than others. So speak up.
That was my point. This is on the page 3. It says Super 2.
Yeah. So I sent her a whole.
He gave me a, and I will make those edits, but I didn't make them for today because I wanted
All
to
good.
you get your feedback on the draft I sent. One thing also to note is that although we appreciated Governor Youngkin, he is, this is his last few months in office. And so we also will want to be getting this strategic plan to the 2 candidates that are running for governor. Reminder is that, once the governor is sworn in, they have 10 months for an energy plan. And I think our work last time really showed in with Governor Youngkin putting so much emphasis on nuclear and how important it is, which we're very grateful for. We hope to do the same thing. There's also right now the Virginia Chamber is working on their blueprint. We will be also going to them, talking to them to make sure at the end of the year when their blueprint comes out, they'll also have some more on nuclear than we've had in the past. Again, we're in a different situation than we were 4 years ago. Amazing how things have changed.
And I'll just underscore what, go ahead. Go ahead. The online.
Yep, I'm here.
Yeah.
Did you have a comment?
I
Glenn?
think somebody was trying to comment.
Oh, sorry, it broke up on the, no, I wasn't trying to comment.
Okay.
Underscore, the legislators, this is incredibly valuable for the legislators. And to Scott's point, having that accuracy on these little details is critical because a lot of the, legislation and trying to introduce this information to the legislators, the vast majority of whom have very little understanding of this aspect of energy in particular. So it is truly critical to have this really reflect the full scope of everything here in Virginia and the importance of this industry. So just really, very, very happy to have that. And the Energy 101s, I did attend the one you did in Richmond last year. And it'd be great if we can drive a few more legislators to these or their staff.
That's why I'm doing it online.
Yeah.
Because we take it down for almost a whole day to an hour and 15 minutes for once a month.
Yeah, because they, as you all know, they deal with thousands of bills every session and they're definitely not experts on every topic, nor should they be. And so getting this information to them sooner rather than later is so helpful.
And all the legislators, once it is finalized, we will email it out to every one of them. We will get it to everyone. And then during the session, I will carry a very heavy bag, hand these out to everyone.
No, but it's a really good point to underscore. This also gives us as an industry, as kind of a collective Virginia nuclear group, this gives us a common, kind of playbook, because I know I've already received inquiries from multiple legislators about interest in doing something for nuclear, and they want to know kind of what that would be, which 4 years ago, 5 years ago, whenever, there was interest, but there wasn't as much. I think now, especially as we move into, the next legislative session with a new administration, there's going to be interest in doing other things in the nuclear space. And if we have kind of this common playbook, that's much easier to hand out and say, take your pick of areas you want to attack, right? Are you a nuclear workforce? Are you interested in research and development? Are you interested in generation? How would you go about it? This can be, kind of that playbook for everybody. And I think it will be something that I know April used a ton before. And there's, like I said, you can go pick through the first strategic plan, and there are a lot of things in there that became legislation, a lot of ideas. So.
Yeah, we list the accomplishments, and actually I thought of one this morning I needed to add in there. New scale needs to be added into that list of what GMU. I don't think it's on that list. We didn't have much to do with that, but I still want to add that because it is a success for the industry and for the state. So I need to add that in there. But we've had a lot of successes in the last 4 years, and we've come a lot of. This, I guess, 1 week I'll be at 10 years. And so, and that's when Marshall pretty much started, the previous executive director. And so we've come a long way. It's been an interesting ride, and I think this next legislative session, I'm not ready to go through our plan today with you all, but this fall we will talk about it. But we have it's going to be a big session for us.
Other comments on the plan?
One statistic in the plan that I think is quite amazing, which says that Virginia has faces tremendous demand for new electricity greater than any state in the U.S., which I did not realize. And I wonder if we'd want to maybe talk a little bit more in here about what's driving all that. But yeah.
And you can pull comments right from our quarterly earnings discussions if you want to, and that, the data center load is real, I don't know what the last time frame was, but, I think it's over the last decade, 450 data centers. And right now we have 20 gigs of requests for data center hookups. So it's a booming industry based on their location and the space and proximity to DC and other prime users of that data in this area. So it's phenomenal.
Yeah, there is a PGM graph that had in there, and I may put it back in, that shows that what we were saying even 4 years ago, where the growth was, and where we're actually at now. It starts here, goes kind of here, and then where we're at now is like this steep curve.
Yeah, you can probably pull some of those public comments.
I was gonna say, we have all that information because we use that regularly. We have a lot of modeling and graphs that would be great, I think, to add to this, to Mary's point on that.
Well, if you guys want to send those to me before I send it over to Brandy, we can add, so then it'd be helpful. I mean, I think that I always personally think I think it's great that we talk about nuclear, and I believe in it. But I think one of the most important thing is to talk about why we need it and why, and that's, everybody thinks it's just our battery on our phone, but they don't think about how much we're actually using daily. And it's amazing when I tell legislators, Todd Flowers at Dominion gave me a little talking point. Every time you do a Google search, it's 17 seconds of a 60-watt light bulb. But when you're in a big crowd and you say that and people look around at each other, it starts, I'm not great at math, but you start looking around, it adds up pretty quickly.
sort of almost a logistics question, but is there a certain time frame? So obviously this is a looking forward, but in things when we talk about accomplishments and those things, are we focused in, you know, is there sort of a time frame you're trying to get at here for how you're setting this up?
You know, that's a good question. I mean, I know there's a couple things this legislative session I want to get done that are mentioned in the plan. But I will probably know more this fall what, needs to happen. I think, with some of the announcements that are, we need to make sure what's best to support your projects, what's best for the universities and going forward. I don't know, I'm just trying to build a runway so you all can land the plane.
I'm gonna give you perspective on time frame. Just when I sat down and commissioned the initial workforce thing, kind of looking at the time frame from that, what it would actually be able to deploy the projected SMRs in Virginia. You've said down and looked at that. That's at least a 10-year time frame. But I think you have to have at least enough granularity to say what would it take to actually get the place of full deployment.
So April, on the legislative side, I know you said you're gonna flesh out some more details maybe later as far as, under the strategic goals section on page 15. Are you going to provide a little more granularity on what we're looking to do and like what that timeframe looks like or anything? I'm just thinking about, I mean, obviously people in this room would understand maybe what some of this means, but for some of the audience, it might be helpful.
So I'm trying to understand this question. Are you asking if I'm going to detail exactly what our timeframe, what we hope to accomplish in the next 4 years, what we want to?
Or a little more detail or granularity on these points here, like on 15, is that the intent? And you said.
Our intent was not to add any more to this, but if there is necessary, you think there needs to be more, that's definitely a topic we need to discuss and we do that. No, we were keeping it broad to hopefully to give us enough room to focus in on that. That was our thought process. I wasn't, we weren't thinking, and that's how we did it last time. And we did hit a lot of our strategies, hit some of these points last.
Yeah, I think the thinking this time and last time both is to leave it broad enough that you can give flexibility to both the individual legislators, the administration, and to VNEC itself too, over the next 4 years, because things may change, right? So it's still kind of categorically saying these are the areas of focus, ideas, not limited to, we're going to push this specific, proposal necessarily, because that may not fit with the legislative environment of that particular year, right? Because we want this to be evergreen or not evergreen, but we want this to be sustained through, 2029. And so that was kind of the idea of keeping it a little broader.
And Dr. Lowe, Calvin, fusion is mentioned in there. So I believe you look at that section and let me know what your thoughts are on that. And I believe that is under innovate. I believe it's under the innovate on page 20. So when you get a chance, just read through it and you can send Brandy and I and also that. Any other questions?
I think Ronnie online. Ronnie, you're muted.
Okay,
Yes.
Yep.
okay. Is there any interest in, I mean, Virginia has the largest deposit of uranium in the country. And 10 years ago, there was a lot of interest in developing that. And, I was on McDonald's Energy Commission, who looked at that from the state legislature's point of view. And he got a lot of pressure, political pressure, such that he made a decision, even though the legislative group that was holding the hearings and so forth, voted to go forward with mining. Because of political pressure, he made a decision to not go forward. There, I bring it up because in terms of political agendas, things to look at, I mean, it is the largest deposit and it's down in Pennsylvania County. Um, if, if somebody wanted to readdress that with today's environment instead of the windmill and solar panel environment, it might be worthwhile.
I think it's always a good topic to bring up to remind us about this conversation. Our philosophy has been over the last 10 years, is basically that the state has a moratorium. We respect that moratorium. Our focus has been getting new development up and running, and hopefully maybe in the future there'll be open some space for that conversation to come up again. But right now we're just looking at new development and making sure we do that, and not go after the moratorium.
So we won't mention that
We
the
will not
deposit
get-
is there.
No, we will not be discussing it. We have had conversations with the uranium mining company that owns that deposit. They understand where we're at. And we have a good relationship with them. We just don't want to distract from what we are trying to do. And our focus is source deployment.
I hadn't seen it and I just wanted to bring it up.
Yep, no, thank you. It's always a good thing to have that conversation. And again, it's always good to bring it up. Thank you.
Roger.
April, on the supply chain side of things, I thought I had seen it in here, but perhaps not. Are there more, is that part of your goals to really talk about maybe expanding or encouraging more of the supply chain, even down to, well, not all critical minerals maybe, but like critical minerals or things that are within the nuclear supply chain for.
We have not discussed critical minerals. We have not. I mean, it has not been, but we are talking about the supply chain. I know Ben Hub is going to be looking more at the supply chain and talking about it. It is a hard thing that we're going to look at, and we're going to be talking to the industry and getting more feedback. I mean, like I said, from 10 years ago, there's a different engagement than there is today. From a year ago, there's a different engagement there is today. I'm hearing more about what the supply chain needs are. I mean, for instance, just telling you that Acon Group, a construction company, is joining.
Yeah.
We don't have that. We've never had that part of the conversation. So we're growing on that. So I think we'll see more of those conversations on those supply chain needs and what Virginia.
I mean, as part of the strategic plan, or you're saying that's more ancillary?
I think we're gonna see. I don't think we'll get specific in the strategic plan, but I know we've talked about doing a study through Ben Hub. And I think we're going to get more feedback from our members as they're going forward, as things are coming closer to actually, moving towards deployment.
Can I make a comment on that? I know when I'm looking at the workforce and also when you look at the supply chain, I do think if we should consider, do we need to say anything more about supply?
Yeah,
Supply
we
chain,
may
because
need
we have over 50 some industry representatives in this Commonwealth that have a nuclear pedigree. I guess is it worthwhile to make a statement about that? And here's something ought to bring visibility.
Yeah, I think
We'll not be more than willing to help somebody else to actually provide some language.
Yeah, I mean, if we need to add another line here, I've tried to put everything in there. Doesn't mean I am perfect and got everything in there. Like I said, this morning I had a thought. I was like, oh, that's a thought I should have put in there. I will probably have more thoughts as I read through it. At some point though, the person that's helping me put this together may tell me stop. So.
Well, April, don't feel bad. That's the whole purpose of this exercise, to get that feedback.
Exactly. But no, it's good, and we should definitely add more about supply chain.
I actually think under the nuclear sustains, I think we should add a bullet on, because I'm looking at, for some reason, I thought maybe we have missed this the last time, but I mean, we've got in the objectives and the strategies on using kind of the, economic development tools, and incentive programs to increase the supply chain.
Tom, where are you?
I'm on I guess this is 13 to 15. We talk about supporting the supply chain. There's a specific, under the advanced technology, we talk about, incentive programs for deployment of new nuclear generation services. Sorry, there was. Under economic development, there's identifying resources for grants or funding for nuclear projects, manufacturing. Okay. That's supply chain. I think under the nuclear sustains, we should probably just have a bullet about ensuring, a robust, maintaining and expanding a robust supply chain or something to that effect, because we have it, right? We want to grow it. We want to, and I think in the strategies and objectives, we have things in there already. So it would just be good to point that out probably.
Perfect, I'll add it.
And we could, April, we did an exercise, the supply chain list that you had produced previously for the secretary to report. I had my team work on a map, and so we have regional maps based on that list. We were testing out different capabilities within our office in our order to illustrate that to in our conversations.
I would love that, because I have the one map that you guys have.
Yeah.
Which is a great map, but I'd love to have it.
Okay.
Something, yeah.
Something like that might help illustrate better for the audience, like where these are located and what our potential is.
Yeah, and I mean, we can add some of those facts and figures towards the end before we get to the citations to add more to it. I think that'd be very helpful.
Other comments? Tim or Randy, I just wanted to make sure on the teams, you guys, if you had any comments, we can. If not, that's okay.
No comments here, Tom. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Randy. Okay. All right, well, if there aren't any other specific comments now, I think what I would like to do is, if you have additional comments from your organization, please email those to April by Friday, by close business Friday. And then let's talk about next steps. As April mentioned, she will incorporate those comments. There's going to be one more review by the VNEC board with incorporating all the comments. And then it will be Virginia Energy will coordinate, I would say, the government's kind of feedback as well and incorporate any of those changes. I think, I don't want to assume, but I do believe that the document's in a pretty good place right now. I think a lot of these changes are just, some clarifications, some changes to making sure we have the right data and facts, some additions of more robust information, which will all be great. I don't imagine this is going to change wholesale in terms of the recommendations, objectives, things like that. So what I would like to do is entertain a motion for the authority to essentially approve the strategic plan, subject to there not being any major changes, I think. So what I would ask is we will have a look if there's a reason to come back to the authority to have another look because something significant has changed, then we could do that during our third quarter meeting. But otherwise, I think we should entertain a motion to approve and send to Virginia Energy for finalization, if that works for everybody. Any comments on, do I have a motion to do that? Gene, and a second? Brian? Great.
Sorry, who was the second?
Brian. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Great, okay. So, we will send out the final, I guess, assuming there's no major alterations. We'll send out the final and we will send April off to go shout it from the rooftops and carpet bomb the Capitol and all those kind of things with pieces of paper.
Oh, we'll be taking it to DC as well.
And all the capitals.
Well, can I just make an observation? The strategic plan as a document captures a tremendous statement about the Commonwealth of Virginia. And it helps us tremendously when we're talking to others, other developers, other states, whatever the case is. It truly shows, I think, we're in a leadership position. So, kudos for the fact that we have, secondly, that we're adding the detail continue to support us. So it's good. I mean, I use it as my reference document.
I know it was we were the first state, but have others followed suit? I mean,
We are the only state that has it done by legislation.
okay.
Now, Texas did come up with their own in their working group, but they didn't do it by legislation. That was by the governor. I don't know of any other state that has one. I think that's it.
So New York, well, let's just say Virginia has set an example for the rest of the country because there are multiple states that have tried or are in the process of trying to do similar things. I would say this second iteration will give Virginia additional bragging rights because while everybody else is doing their first or starting to implement, Virginia will already be on its second strategic plan. So yeah, but New York, the NYSERDA, which is their Virginia Energy essentially, they're in the middle of an advanced nuclear plan right now that I think that's coming out sometime this fall. April mentioned Texas has done it. Tennessee's kind of done something similar. Yeah, there's Idaho. There's a lot of states that have done it, and frankly, all of them call April and ask about how Virginia did it.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Virginia is a member of the Advanced Nuclear State Collaborative, and we're talking about these initiatives. And I've extended the branch to April to speak. We've also, I reached out to Ed Bain. Emil's going to be speaking on one of their sessions about the efforts in Virginia, what's going on.
I was at a session a couple weeks ago, is also on that. But each state does it differently too. There's nothing, New York looks totally different than what ours looks like. Everybody's focusing on different things because they have different
landscapes.
Yeah. And some are trying to start fresh. So it's been pretty different. So you can't say any one of them is the same. I think Texas is probably the closest to us on what because they're pretty aggressive on the economic development. But again, everyone's different. I think you'll see something from Utah soon as well.
Virginia is a
The
model.
strategy is just throw a whole bunch of money at people.
Yeah. Whoever grabs it first.
Yeah.
I'll have to say the biggest thing that surprised me was that in New York, Governor Hochul actually made a statement quoted the other day that shutting Indian Point down was a mistake. And I've never, knowing a little bit about New York politics, I would have never expected any member of the New York government establishment to say, well, we shouldn't have done.
Yeah, it's one thing is we're bipartisan more and more compared to where we were 10 years ago. Definitely compared to where we were 20 years ago. It's a lot different landscape.
5 years.
So this is a public document, right?
Yes.
But at what point are we comfortable distributing it? I get calls from clients, some of whom are foreign entities, companies interested in all the opportunities and all of everything they're reading about the spend in America on nuclear. And it would be, I wouldn't want to provide something to somebody that's not in a finished condition, but at what point are we comfortable with doing that?
As soon as we get back from the state,
Yeah.
that they have signed off on it. And that we, really, once we get their edits and stuff, it's pretty much turned in. And then we'll let everybody know this is the final draft. Brandy will put it on their website and you can just link it to that.
That's great.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That's what we did with the last one. It was linked on I think it's the authority's website, right? Or not the link.
It's on the governor's.
Yeah, the governor's page. And so, yeah, that's.
And
been
we
out there.
also link it on our website too.
So, yeah, it'll be able to be sent around. So hopefully that'll be soon.
And one other question or thought, and maybe this is not for the strategic plan specifically, maybe it's more of the energy 101 discussions. But we get a lot of questions and we've done a lot of background on all the presidential EOs now pertaining to nuclear, et cetera. And how can we take advantage of what's being presented from that level? And is there anything being done to provide a little more specificity around that?
For VNAC on the executive orders,
Yeah.
no.
Or for like, as far as like initiatives here, and again, I don't know if that's strategic plans per se, or more for like.
Guys, I would just say just a broader comment is, you know, the EOs obviously very positive. You know, it's just, there's a lot of good messaging, but I also think, especially for how can a state look at them and figure out where do we fit in, where can we go from here? We really need to see what the execution or the implementation plans are that come out of that.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of 120 days, you
Mhm.
know, from the date they were issued, in several places. Again, it's more of a broader comment because perhaps there is something to grab onto. But I don't know if we know what that is yet.
Right,
The
I guess,
specifics behind it to go do part. And
right,
where possibly can the Commonwealth fit in?
yeah, no, that absolutely makes sense.
So
I
sort
think,
of sit and wait is sort of
yeah,
my view.
yeah,
So,
or maybe just an indication that evaluation is being done.
yeah, I mean,
You know,
that's,
something
that,
for the
yeah,
legislators.
no, that's.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably say that we probably need to keep it, high level on that thing, that it's, you know, when we start talking about the legislature, by that time, we'll have a pretty much better idea where the EOs are at, and we can use that as talking points and add that to just talking points with. I don't think I'd want to add it into the strategic plan necessarily.
Mhm.
Again, the winds change pretty quickly these days, and I want
Yeah.
to make sure this is as dated as possible from 6 months to a year.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking even more like here, there are things that I think you do that maybe others aren't aware of, like that maybe you take for granted people know that it are taking place. So in other words, monitoring what's happening at the federal level on executive orders, legislation, et cetera, and making sure that that's communicated out, that is taking place, those evaluations are taking place, as part of the role, if that's appropriate.
Does the state do, that's a great question.
We do.
Yeah.
I mean, does the state do kind of a coordinated effort on how are we gonna go and try to, you know, make this work to our advantage for these executive orders?
So that's what we've been, especially, you know, evaluating, all of them coming down that impact energy altogether. And what does that look like? And so I guess maybe more of a understanding of what you all already do, and how that can be coordinated as far as like the evaluation and the input and feedback on, and what is needed, you know?
I would kind of look at it as like what teams should our leaders be on from that effort. That's how I kind of look at it. Make sure everybody knows what everyone's doing. 'Cause
Yeah.
there's definitely opportunities there that we don't want to miss.
Yeah,
And I mean, and the state does a great job of making sure that we don't miss grant opportunities. You all do a great job on that. We all work together. I mean, I guess I could add more into that. I just, we've always looked at this as a plan, an high level overview of what the industry itself needs to do. It talks about VNAC, our missions, but really, it is the activities we need to do, not about exactly what we're currently doing. This one does talk about what we have, our successes over the last 4 years. But it's something we could definitely talk about. But I think what we've gone into legislators' offices and taking this in, they don't really ever ask me, hey, what are you doing on this? Maybe they may, but they're mostly interested on what, as an industry, what we are wanting to accomplish and what we have.
Okay, no, that's helpful. Thank you.
So, I had a couple updates on, speaking of which, obviously, one of which is on the executive orders. As folks, I'm sure, have seen, significant activity around those. A lot of them, as Scott mentioned, are directives to the agencies to go do studies or develop plans over the next 90, 120 days, depending on which aspect, right? So there's definitely there's a focus on regulatory efficiency. That's for sure, directing the NRC to go do a number of things, a lot of which, thankfully, they are in the process of doing because of some of the congressional action in the past couple of years. So there'll be extensions of that. I will be honest, I'm concerned about the NRC's ability to do some of those things because of, frankly, staffing. They were already challenged because of resources. That has been further exacerbated in the last couple months with people leaving. Just in the past 2 weeks, there's been other significant departures, including, I just heard this morning, an NRC commissioner was told to leave. So anyway, so there's a lot of good things in terms of how they can do things faster and more efficient, I think, from an industry standpoint. They also need the resources to be able to do that. So that's a message as you all are carrying back. I know a lot are carrying to the administration and others that is really important. There was, one of the orders is on, I think, a particular interest here in Virginia is on how U.S. government facilities and purchasing power like the DoD can be used to accelerate advanced nuclear projects, right? So that's, I think, a continuation on what the Navy had done with their RFI about base power and partnerships with commercial industry for nuclear that could be both power bases, but also the grid. So that's a great thing. A increase in the goal for total nuclear generation by 2050 that went from the Biden administration had set it at 300 gigawatts. Now we're up to 400 gigawatts by 2050, which is ambitious. But I think as you drill down, there was the objective of having 10 gigawatts in large reactor projects under construction by 2030, and 5 gigawatts in power upgrades also by 2030. So both from a generation standpoint in Virginia and from a supply chain, those are significant accelerators for nuclear projects. And then there was obviously the pieces on workforce, which we talked about earlier. So as you have questions on the executive orders, I think it's worth, we'll continue to send information around. I don't know if anybody else has any perspectives, or Eric, how you all are responding to any of those things.
Yes, all of our responses are going through the nuclear energy institute. So we've had a couple different jump up calls with NEI. We reviewed all the executive orders. We get together every other Friday basically and go through kind of the status and with a lot of the same cautions that you had mentioned. How do we make sure that we don't ask for too much and don't challenge the regulator too much? But we do need a strong regulator to ensure that we're doing things safely and that we keep enabling all the important things that we really need, right? They license all of our operators, they approve changes to our plants, they approve new licenses for new plants, so there's a lot of things that need to keep moving in that process so the whole industry doesn't stand still. So we're trying to temper some of that with some reality. And there's also some things in there that just won't help us at all that are mandated or asked to be implemented. So we're working through NEI to provide industry feedback.
Then a couple other, I think, positive things. So we talked about the bipartisan nature of, kind of the enduring support for nuclear, which I think has been displayed again as we look at the budget reconciliation process that is working its way through Congress right now. The nuclear tax credits have largely been preserved, that were in place. We're one of the few industries where the incentives were maintained, which is great. There's I think still some improvements that can be made as the Senate starts their process really this week. I think the bill came out today. I haven't looked at it yet, but that's a good thing. There's a real broad recognition, and I think thankfully there's some leadership from our Virginia delegation on the importance of the nuclear tax credits, both for the existing and new generation facilities. Which again, as you look at what was put forth in the executive orders, there's a lot of synergy there. You need the tax incentives. I think the Secretary of Energy has said some really good things on the loan guarantee office and the importance to advance nuclear as well, which those are all good things. And then the last thing just to mention is last week, I think it was last week or the end of the week before, the World Bank announced that it was ending its ban on financing nuclear energy projects, which obviously that's not a impact to domestic projects, but for the export market, that's a really big deal. That's a big change in policy and something that's been advocated for a long time. And I think as we look at that export market that April talks about in the strategic plan, that will be really important as countries look at new nuclear and establishing nuclear programs. That even allows the World Bank to start funding just countries that are interested in starting a nuclear program. They couldn't even get financing to go look at how do we learn how to be a regulator. They could go to the IAEA or other entities for that, but the World Bank really is a major funding mechanism for that type of work. And so I think that'll be really helpful for the rest of the world to get financing for nuclear. Those are the big updates. There's stuff going on all the time, but I wanted to stick to the big things. I don't know if there's other updates or member announcements that we have that we wanted to open the floor for.
The only other thing I'd mention is that we're still on track. Our goal is to select a technology this year. It is hand in hand with the financing model, so that they're dependent on each other, and the technology providers and working through the commercial terms of that are important as well. But we're definitely zoomed in on a few that we really like, and we're performing some more due diligence. Gene and I were actually doing last week together. So we're making a lot of really good progress there, and there's some really interesting and excellent technologies out there. So I think by the end of this year, our goal is still intended to announce that publicly on which way we want to go. But there's still a lot of work to do.
Sometimes in the late fall, we expect to have our fusion experiment up and running. But it's phase one of it. So if you're interested in seeing how accelerator for shape thing works, we would hope to have at least the calls running in the field now. Visit us in Hampton and take a tour.
Can I just make a suggestion? That maybe one of our next board meetings go down there and get a tour. If we can do that, that'd be really fun.
Field trip, I'm game.
I
I can coordinate all of you guys.
Yeah, actually, I've already been talking with him about that, and I said I haven't yet talked to the full team.
No, I think it's a great idea. And I think actually I was thinking about a lot of the new facility. I mean, like we said, NewScale's got the simulator up at GMU now, and a lot of great projects. So we may have to start thinking about once or twice a year taking Uneco
Doing a rotation.
on the road outside
Yeah.
of Richmond.
And if you haven't done either Framatome or BWXT's tour, they're excellent as well. There's some good stuff here.
Mhm.
This is Ronnie. I think at the next meeting, it would be a good topic to get an update on the fusion reactor, because that they seem to be moving and moving rapidly. So I enjoyed the briefing, the last meeting, very much. And just a suggestion.
Thank you. Good. I think unless there are other announcements, I don't think we have anybody from the public on for any public comments, but, oh, well, sorry, that's not true. I see, Mike Hatfield, did you have any comments? Sorry, I didn't mean to miss you there. Okay. With that, unless there are other comments, I appreciate everybody's time and the deep dive. If you can get comments to April by Friday, that'd be great. And then we will work on the Q3 meeting for probably late summer, early September. Okay.
So Tom, before we end, I just want to say that this is my last meeting. My service to the. I object. Anyway, I just want to say how I've really enjoyed working with you in particular, Tom, but all the members of the authority, and wish you all the best as it moves forward. You know, I'm slowly trying to move my focus to more fun things and grandchildren and things. But I'll never be able to. I've been in nuclear for a long time. So anyway, I just, thanks for the opportunity of being part of this group, and best of luck.
Thank you, Gene. You've been, I think you're our longest serving member of the authority right now.
Gary was on before I came, so I'm very.
Okay, all right. Well, second line, but anyway, yes, thank you so much for your service, not only to the authority, but to the industry at large over your career. So really appreciate it.
Thanks.
And enjoy your grandchildren. I know we're fun, but not that fun. All right, with that, we're adjourned. Thank you.